Okay.
One more time.
Presley, take two. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
It was 1993 when the hotel owner hired me to manage the overnight shift of his New York hotel. He warned me that there would not be much activity during these hours. He left me with two pieces of advice. Piece of advice number one was because I had to perform the overnight audits, he wanted me to double and triple check my accounting. Piece of advice number two was to always respond to room number 619. He instructed me, if room number 619 calls, to lock the register, set the phones to voicemail, and lock the front door to all non-residents. And go directly to room number 619 and do whatever they asked me to do. I promised him I would. 2 weeks had gone by. I still had not heard anything from room number 619. Finally, one night, I get a phone call. It was room number 619. It was an elderly voice, and she spoke in a frantic whisper. She says, please, I need your help. They're in my room. I ask, who's in your room? She says, the little mad men. They're in my room. They're yelling and screaming at me, and they're calling me names. They're banging on the walls, and they're stomping on the floors. They're going to wake up the other tenants. And I told her I would be right there. I followed the instructions that the hotel owner had given me, and I went directly to room number 619. Going up in the elevator, I thought to myself, hey, why did I drop out of that Taekwondo class? I could use them right now. But when I got to the floor, I couldn't help but notice how quiet everything was. And when I got to her room, I put my ear against the door to see if I could hear any sounds of corruption. Silence. So I knocked on the door, and this little voice says, who's there? And I said, it's the front desk manager. She opened the door slightly just to confirm it was me. And then she closed the door, took the chain off the door, and let me in. As soon as I got in, I recognized her immediately. Her name was Miss Reno. Though we had never been formally introduced, I'd seen her in the lobby many times. She was always a happy person, glowing smiles for everyone. She was somewhere, I guess you'd say, between the age, somewhere in her late 70s, early 80s. And she only stood about 5 feet tall. She had snow white hair and the bluest eyes I'd ever seen on any person of any age. But it was easy to see she had been crying. She says, there's so many of them, they're all over the place. And I looked at her and I could see that she was genuinely frightened. She was standing in the corner of the room. She was wearing this long, pink, towel-like robe, and she was clutching it together with both hands. She was clutching it so tight, you could see the whites of her knuckles. And she was shaking, just shaking in fear. As I looked around her totally immaculate room, I said, Miss Reno, there's no one here. She says, don't tell me you can't see them. You've got to see them. There's so many of them. Just please, just get them out of here, please. I didn't know what to do. I looked at her. This woman was absolutely terrified. I didn't know how to handle this. So I just started shooing the little mad men like they were chickens on a farm. I started out very slow, and then I became more aggressive, and then I became more and more aggressive. As I became even more aggressive, some of the little mad men began to rush in Miss Reno's direction. Miss Reno started stomping and kicking at the little mad men, and then she opened the door so the little mad men could run out that way. I rushed over and opened the window so more little mad men could run out that way. Miss Reno screams, under the bed, there are more hiding under the bed. I rushed over, got down on the floor, and I shooed the little mad men from under Miss Reno's bed and out the window. When I looked back at Miss Reno, I noticed she had relaxed. And I asked, do you see any more? She says, no, I think we got them all. Then as she was wiping the remaining tears from her eyes, she slowly walked over and she sat on the foot of her bed. She says, they're just so vulgar. I stood there looking like Superman, daring any of the little madmen to show their faces while I was in the room. Da-da-da-da! Miss Reno and I went straight up tall on those little madmen. Miss Reno looked up at me. She says, thank you. And then she says, would you like some tea and cookies? My not being quite sure if I should leave her alone just yet, answered, yes, ma'am, that would be nice. Thank you. That early morning, Miss Reno and I had tea and cookies, and talked about everything but little mad men. From then on, whenever I would see Miss Reno in the lobby, she was her usual gracious self. Broad smiles for everyone. But about every 2 weeks, I would get a phone call from room number 619, asking me to help her shoo the little mad men away from her room. I never felt it was my place to question Miss Reno about her condition. To me, she was just Miss Reno, and she became one of my very best friends. I miss you, Miss Reno.
And cut. All right, what you think?